Great news! I've managed to survive the Genin exams and graduate as a fully fledged ninja warrior. Now that I'm back, I'm going to come clean as to what I'm doing for the government. A lot of y'all that already know are understandably curious as to how I got my new job as a prospective Army helicopter pilot, especially with no prior military service. The actual program I used to get here isn't really advertised very well, and the requirements change every other year. I've talked to many green suiters who are completely unaware of this option, and that's pretty sad to me, so I'm going to do my part to alleviate this issue. This video will act as an introductory guide to the Army's High School to Flight School program, otherwise known as Street to Seat. It will serve as a reference for anyone interested in the selection process for Army aviation. High School to Flight School is a program that allows qualified civilians to start as a pilot and warrant officer in the Army. True to the name of the program, some of my peers are high school graduates as young as 18 years old.
There is just one place where you can go from high school to flight school: the Army. Today's Army has more pilots than the largest airline.
Not bad for a rookie.
That advertisement still holds true. The Army really does need you. I've noticed that ever since the Kiowa Warrior was dropped, there has been a critical shortage of pilots in the Army. The odds of getting selected haven't been higher for a long time, especially with a big war seeming ever likely. Let's talk about what you need to qualify. Something crucial to getting started is that you've got to find a good recruiter. Warrant aviation packets in general are a bit annoying to process because the Sift flight test adds an extra step to the already paperwork intensive recruiting procedure. If you're an insufferable Cascadian like me, know that I specifically went through the Lynnwood Career Center. They really know their stuff, and I would consider giving them a call if you're in their area and serious. Staff Sergeant Al-Rawi, Sergeant First Class Miller, and the whole team all played a huge part in getting me my dream job. Just tell them that Oxide sent you. But please, don't waste their time. Watch the rest of this video first. These are the main requirements to getting selected as of 2022. The Asvab Test, Sif Test, Letters of Recommendation, Written Essay, a Class 1 Flight Physical, and Interim Security Clearance. The Army is still implementing the ACFT, so physical condition isn't considered yet aside from your weight and the OPAT test. There also isn't an in-person interview board on the civilian side, probably due to COVID. VerticalReference.com also has a forum page that lists the statistics of those who were selected to help you establish a realistic baseline. I'll post a link below. One last thing to consider before we get into requirements. As of 2022, High School to Flight School requires a 10-year commitment, and the timer on that commitment only counts down after you've passed training, so it ends up being closer to 12 years in the Army. That should scare you a little bit. Anyway, the minimum ASVAB general technical score to be considered for the program is 110. I scored a 129 GT and was 93rd percentile overall. There is an abundance of study resources on the internet for doing well in the Asvab test. It should be your first indicator for if you've got the aptitude to being selected. I would consider closing this video, going to a recruiter, and taking the ASVAB test first before you research the rest of the requirements. Also, if you've got some sort of medical issue that would fail your flight physical, or serious criminal history that might deny a security clearance, ask your recruiter about getting a waiver. Moving on to the Sif test. The Sif test is a bit of a weird one. It is a timed aptitude test that consists of 7 sections. Because the Sif could really have a video on its own, I'm going to defer to videos made by Helicopter Lessons in 10 Minutes or Less and Greenbaggers, as they both made great 2-part videos on the Sif test. Links are in the description. A warning about Sift study guides, however. I felt like my Sift guide was much different from the actual test, so I would take some time and get some redundancy in your material by getting multiple guides. Also, read the first 5 chapters of the FAA Helicopter Flying Handbook. Next, you'll need 3 to 6 letters of recommendation. Keep in mind, people serving in the Army applying for this program need a letter from someone who's a CW3 or higher, so it'd be wise coming from the civilian side to have at least one letter that fits that category. Something I've noticed with a lot of people is that they strive to get CW5s, generals, and senators writing their letters of recommendation. Make sure that with whoever you solicit, they are people who will really put heart into writing on your behalf. I use people that have known me for years. I've had tan and green berets, Army rotary wing pilots, one from SOAR, an Air Force Wizzo, and the CEO of the last company I worked for. These are all ride or die friends who I trust and really care about my success, as opposed to mere acquaintances who hold high office. 4 of my letters were written by NCOs, with the highest rank being from a first lieutenant. Solicit your letters well in advance, examine them closely, and get more letters than you think you'll need. It'll feel a little dirty, but life gets in the way and you don't want to miss a board because someone was simply too busy to type out something for you. Next, the written essay. It starts with the prompt, why I want to become an Army aviator. It needs to be meticulous in grammar and spelling with capitalization applied to Army aviator. Mine was 1.5 pages in length. I've attached a link to it below for your own reading. The essay talks about my motivations and why I'm qualified to be an Army aviator. Specifically, I picked an instance where I had to deal with a stressful problem and use leadership. Get your recruiter to review your essay or send it to those writing your letters for their own proofreading. It's fairly common to not get selected on the first look. You can improve your packet and resubmit to the next board. Once you do get selected, you'll usually have some time to get your affairs in order before you ship off to Basic. Once you graduate Basic, you go to WOX, SEER, and then Common Core. The Army really needs pilots, and this job is the best they have to offer. Let me repeat myself. This is the best job in the Army, besides maybe chaplain's assistant.
Apache, there's nothing hotter in the air or on the ground for Jack Holt, Army Crew Chief.
The Apache's got advanced everything, like a TV for target acquisition. The gunner aims just by moving his head. Talk about hot. This bird can make tracks at 200 miles an hour. Now that's cool. No, that's hot. Find your future in the army.